Yes, I'm coming to y'all from my bed, and yes, I'm tired. One of the comments on one of my videos was like, "You look tired," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm so tired." And you're right. Like when I'm tired, I look tired. So yes, I'm tired, but I wanted to do this real quick because I'm going to be busy tomorrow. Um, One of the things that oh nope, hold on. I'm not editing. I want this video done so I can go to bed. So one of the topics that comes up a lot, with people who choose to harm animals unnecessary for taste pleasure, is the whole concept of, veganism. Can it be a nutritionally well balanced, healthy diet? And of course it is, because if it wasn't, you would have, tons of dead vegans dying from being vegan instead of people that have been vegan for 20 years. Um, so when the concept of nutrition comes up, it can feel a little bit tricky to navigate because there's so many different aspects, right? There's a lot of little intricacies within the concept of nutrition that people who choose to harm animals unnecessarily for pleasure, non-vegans, will bring up. And, they'll say B12, they'll say protein, they'll say iron, they'll say, I don't know, zinc, and there's one that people bring up too. It's choline, maybe. So there's all these little subjects. And two things here. If somebody says, well, you can't get enough protein, try to know your numbers. Try to have some background information with your numbers, right? And something that I'll say when people tell me, well, I need a high protein diet, I'm like, oh yeah, me too. How many grams of protein do you get per day? Ask them. And chances are they're not going to know. I've never actually had somebody tell me how much protein they get per day, unless they're bodybuilding, which but I've never had anybody say that when I talk about veganism. So if they can't really comment on how many grams of protein they get per day, they're just using it as an excuse. So, but it doesn't matter, right? So ask them that question. They go, oh yeah, well, I get 150 grams per day, and it's not that hard. And if you need protein, you can have a protein shake. And if you're worried about iron or B12, you can take a vitamin. So what this really comes down to is you don't have to supplement as a vegan necessarily, but I don't feel like chasing down all the nutrients. Just like I wouldn't if I was harming animals unnecessarily for food. I would have to take maybe fiber supplements. But in a vegan diet, right, having to take a vitamin once a day is a much better choice than unnecessarily harming an animal, right? So we can flip that around and say, yeah, it can be tricky to get B12 on a vegan diet, but having to take a vitamin is definitely better than harming an animal unnecessarily, right? So the question then becomes, does having to take a vitamin mean that it's okay to harm animals instead of taking the vitamin? And that's what it comes down to, right? So your options are know all your numbers, know what choline, know about zinc, know about B12, know about heme iron, know about plant iron, like know all these things, or simply say, yeah, it can be tricky to get B12 on a vegan diet, but I take a vitamin and it's better than hurting an animal. And I think that's the most justifiable, easy to come up with answer. Same thing with protein, right? Me personally, truthfully, I'm pretty lazy. I do sometimes have soy curls because I like them, but I drink a protein shake almost every day because I don't love cooking and I do like protein. So have those answers in your back pocket. Still not editing that out. So all this comes down to a comment that was left on my page. I'll try to tag him in the comments here, or in the description. But this person's comment was something like, well, what about the fact that in order to get 15% of your daily serving of iron, you can eat 2 ounces of meat, but if you wanted to get that from broccoli, you'd have to eat 2 pounds or something like that, right? So first of all, sure, 2 pounds of broccoli has 15% of your daily serving, but 2 ounces of meat doesn't have all your fiber, right? So comparing two separate like nutrients or two separate things you can eat doesn't mean anything, right? Because one serving of grape nuts has 90% of my daily serving of iron, and more than you find in 2 ounces of meat, right? So when people talk about specifics, it doesn't really matter unless they're comparing two like things, which they aren't, right? They're comparing animal flesh to non-animal flesh, so of course it's going to contain different nutrients, some of them beneficial on the plant side and some of them beneficial on the animal flesh side. But at the end of the day, only one of those options is directly responsible for unnecessarily killing an animal intentionally, and that's the one where we're eating an animal's body parts. So again, try to know your numbers and try to have some information on that, but also Also, yes, I'm tired. I'm tired. If somebody tells you that it's hard to get XYZ nutrients on a vegan diet, the response is easily responses. You're right. B12 can be tricky on a vegan diet. I take a supplement. I'd rather take a vitamin every day than unnecessarily harm an animal. Easy, right? So having to take a vitamin doesn't justify harming an animal unnecessarily. All right, you guys, I'm tired. I'm rambling. I'm done. Hopefully this video makes it up there because I'm going to sleep.